Pro Bowl, it's the same.
Your hip.
Megatron.
That Pro Bowl.
Alright, let's go back to the beginning. This we're gonna try to do first.
Oh, we're live, bro. We're live.
We're live.
We're live.
Good morning, America. I'm your host, with the most, Javier Bonilla. Here with my three friends, Sebastian, Tony, and Ethan, ready to bring you the top 10 1850 events or persons. Now, for number 10, Tony.
So for number 10, we have Frederick Douglass. He was born February 1818. He was a prominent American abolitionist, author, and orator. Frederick, from the age of birth and to the age of 20, he was a full-time slave. And actually, at the age of 20, he escaped and became one of the biggest anti-slavery activists. And what that means is he went around preaching and telling people about like how bad slavery was and basically what his life was as a slave.
Number 9.
Alright, so number 9, we have John Brown, May 9th, 1800. He was a white American abolitionist who armed men to take out slaves because he thought that was what the key was to end slavery. In 1859, he actually got caught for his doings and got hung.
Bad ending.
Number 8.
Alright, so for number 8, we have Harriet Beecher Stowe. She was born June 14th, 1811, and her most famous writing was Uncle Tom's Cabin. And basically what she did to write the book was she went around and interviewed former slaves, and basically she wanted to know how their life was as a slave and how they escaped, and basically how slaves were named property and not people, and which is totally wrong, but that's just the way life was.
Number 7. Lincoln-Douglas debates were a series of 7 debates between Lincoln and Douglas discussing about the country and slavery. Basically, they got some stuff done, like the Kansas-Nebraska Act. Those debates were put in a book, which was number 1 seller at the time.
Number 6.
Kansas-Nebraska Act and Bleeding Kansas was a time when Kansas and Nebraska decided to have slavery or not to have slavery. Basically, the anti-slaverists came to the country and the pro-slaverists came to the country. And basically, they all brought violence and terror, but in the end, anti-slavery won and Kansas and Nebraska became a free state.
Number 5.
William Lloyd Garrison. He was a man who wrote the abolitionist papers. He wanted slavery to be ended now and ended quick. He attacked slaveholders in his papers and saying how they were bad people. People called him a criminal, but the abolitionist papers were number 2 seller at the time.
Number 4.
Alright, for number 4, we got Harriet Tubman. She was born in Maryland, 1821. She was a fugitive slave known for her help with the Underground Railroad. That wasn't actually an Underground Railroad. It was just an organized effort by the Northerners to help escape slaves. In general, the North free black slaves played the most important role in planning, communications, and decisions within the network of escape. It was most active in Ohio, Indiana, and Pennsylvania. Close to 100,000 slaves used this network to become free.
Number 3.
Alright, so for number 3, we got the Dred Scott decision. The Dred Scott decision. It was in 1857, and it argued whether or not black slaves or free could be citizens. Did Congress have the right to outlaw slavery, and had Scott become a free slave while living in Illinois? The Chief Justice said black slaves couldn't be citizens, but Scott claimed that he was a free slave because he lived in Wisconsin when the Missouri Compromise outlawed slaves. But the Chief Justice said it was unconstitutional, and Congress had no more right to outlaw slavery than they had to take away people's cattle or anything that they own. After that, his owners set him free when there was an uprising, violent uproar, and this case brought the Civil War closer and closer.
Number 2.
Okay, so for number 2, we got the election of 1860. The election of 1860 was very important in the nation because the nation had been divided in the 50s because of the issue of slavery. In 1860, slavery was the main topic, and the Democratic Party fell from power, and this brought Lincoln into power. Even though Lincoln had the support of the North and Midwest, he only had 40% of the overall votes. Before Lincoln's inauguration, 7 southern states seceded from the Union, and the Civil War began when Confederate troops fired on Fort Sumter in Charleston, South Carolina, in 1861.
Now, before we get to number 1, which I know everyone's dying for, I have an honorary mention to make. The Compromise of 1850. Drafted by Henry Clay, the Compromise was several bills passed by the U.S. Congress in 1850, which diffused a 4-year political confrontation between the slave and slave-free states regarding the status of territories gained during the Mexican-American War. Now, number 1! For number 1, I have my personal favorite, Charles Sumner and Preston Brooks fight. Senator Charles Sumner had a speech in which he verbally attacked Senator Andrew Butler. What Charles wasn't expecting was for Butler's second cousin, South Carolina's representative, Preston Brooks, to enter the Senate chamber 2 days later and proceed to beat him with a cane. Now, if fights weren't funny enough, now imagine grown men who work for the government. Charles Sumner was severely injured and was out for the rest of his time in the Senate.
Alright, well now to our roll call. Alright, so for our roll call, we got Talbot County High School, where Frederick Douglass was born, right here. Right there. I don't know if you can see it. Right there. Okay, Torrington, Connecticut Eagles at Torrington Middle School, where John Brown was born, up there. Yeah, right there. And Hodgeville, Kentucky, at Abraham Lincoln Elementary School, where Abraham Lincoln was born. Right there. Okay, well, that's all we have for today.
That's all we have for today, guys. Thanks
you.
for joining us.
Thanks for joining us on Good Morning America.
Take us out, dog.